Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at my guild's heroic Kel'Thuzad kill. So this is the penultimate boss in the raid, so second to last. And Kel'Thuzad is not super easy, right? So I figured I'd make this video just to, help give you guys some tips and tricks for ways that we killed this boss and things that might be helpful for you to also kill this boss, right? Again, like all the previous videos, I'm going to try and make this one very general so that if you feel like you want to share it with your guild so that more people are prepared, or maybe share it with your friends or whatever. Hopefully the stuff that I say in this video will help more than just shadow priests. I do main a shadow priest, however, so there may be times where I say things that are specific to shadow priests, in which case I apologize in advance, but most of the people who watch my videos are shadow priests anyway, so there may be a little bit of that, but let's just get right into it. This boss, I'm not going to go over all the mechanics again. I'm just going to mention how we deal with them. This boss has a downstairs phase and an upstairs phase, and it's important that you figure out who you want to send to the downstairs phase and who you want to keep in the upstairs phase. For anyone who doesn't know, this boss, you kill Kel'Thuzad, and then it splits into the intermission phase, where half the team goes downstairs, half the team stays upstairs, and then you're back to phase 1, where you kill the boss again, and then you do the same thing, then you kill the boss one more time, and then people go back down and finish off the guy in the downstairs phase, and then after that, you're in the final phase, where things get really crazy, and you pop lust and all your cooldowns, and you kill the boss, and it's over, right? So it goes phase 1, intermission 1, phase 2, intermission 2, phase 3, intermission 3, phase 4, and then the boss is dead, right? So the different phases have different abilities and things, so I'll try to mention that kind of stuff, but so yeah, you can see the boss is already at 75% health. It's not about to die, it's just that you have to kill it, and then you kill it 4 times, right? So sorry. So that first mechanic that just happened, the soul fracture, will split 3 adds, it looks like. Sometimes I think there are 4, but several adds will come off from the tank and they'll land around the room. So these ones are called Lasik because that's one of our tanks. And what you need to do is kill these adds, but the most important thing about these adds is that they cast something like a wailing thing or something. They cast it, and it's a pretty quick cast, and if it goes off, it does a pretty significant amount of raid damage. So if you'll watch like this guy probably, you'll see that, so this piercing wail, we interrupted both of those, but all 3 adds will cast it, and it takes like 2 seconds to go off. So you need, if you're not going to assign specific people to interrupt these, which is probably not a bad idea. We didn't assign anybody, but we had people assigned for the far ones, but not the close ones. You just need to make sure that everybody is aware and should be interrupting these adds ASAP, right? And then you want to focus them down. These are like the priority target right now, not the boss. So that the adds come out, and then you get these silence circles. These silence circles will silence all players in them and also all enemies in them, right? So when you can't always do this, but when you can, you want to put these silence circles on top of these tank adds so that they can just never cast, right? That's the easy way to deal with the interrupts. But you can't always do that. Sometimes the silent circles come out when there are no tank adds, or the tank adds come out just as the silent circles are ending, stuff like that. So it can be hard to place them correctly, but the silent circle also activates before it drops off of you. So once your countdown above your head hits 0, you're silencing everything in your circle, and it's still attached to you. So you can run it over one of the adds, even though and it will silence them right before it actually drops the pool. So that's something as well to keep in mind. Don't take it out after your cooldown or after the thing hits 0, because if you wait that long before you move, you're going to silence all your ranged friends, and they're going to be upset probably. So, okay, so you've got these tank ads. They need to die quickly. You've got these silent circles that you use to silence them. Otherwise, if you're not going to use the silent circles to silence the tank ads, just take them outside of the raid where nobody is, right? So that they don't end up silencing people. Okay, and then right here we get the first spike. So in phase 1, the very first set of spikes, there's only one, and it goes on this guy Morkster down here. And the way we were handling this is just bring it on top of the boss, and we're going to cleave it down. When these spikes die, they explode and do a bunch of damage to people, and they leave a dot. Also, when they expire, they leave this swirly on the ground. So if you're bringing it on top of the boss, people need to watch their feet and make sure that they're not standing in this swirly, because it will do damage when it spawns. We had a couple people die over the course of the night, where we had like 3 of these swirlies stacked on each other, and people weren't paying attention, and then they got one shot by all 3 of them. Also, every so often, the boss will resurrect these devoted, frostbound devoted is what they're called, and they'll... Oh, this is actually super interesting, because in Plaguefall, this is just a bit of a side note, in Plaguefall there are ads just like this that are called Plaguebound Devoted, and they're like all plaguey, right? And they do this exact same thing. They fixate on somebody and just walk towards them. These are Frostbound Devoted, and they're like the exact same thing, but they're frost instead of plague, right? So just think of them exactly like you would think of those Plaguefall guys. When they get to their person, instead of just meleeing them to death like the Plaguefall guys, they explode and they do AoE damage. So anybody who's standing near the person that's being fixated is going to take, it's like 26,000 damage or something. So it's very important that these guys never hit and explode on people, right? You can stun them, you can fear them, you can all sorts of CC works on these guys, but also they should just be dying to like ranged cleave anyway. But they're not the priority target. You can kite them for a really long time, especially when you have a decent amount of CC for them. And there are other targets that need to die more quickly in this phase. Like when this spike spawns, it's going to need to die more quickly. So you'll see I turn and start focusing this. Also, you see these eyeballs on Kalamazi. That means that he's being focused by this Plaguebound Devoted. I stun it, and then we end up killing it, right? And it's all totally fine. So that is when the spike dies. We get another set of these tank ads. We move the boss towards the close ones. Oh, and I'll also mention, we move the boss towards the close ones, and we have this meteor that comes out. When this meteor comes out in phase 1 and in phase 2, we decided to just soak it every time. It's going to put a root on everybody who soaks it, and it does a pretty large amount of damage. Like, it's like 364,000 damage split between everybody, something like that. And if you just have like most of the raid in the circle, you'll all be fine. The only problem is that it roots everybody, which is a problem when you have these Frostbound Devoted that are running around everywhere, right? So as a priest, and with your priest healers and your priest DPS, you should be mass dispelling, and you'll see I cast my mass dispel right after it goes off. That way, anybody who has a way to clear the root on their own, they are supposed to clear it ASAP, and then you want your mass dispels to clear all the people who can't clear their own root, right? So what you can do is, if you know the cast time of your mass dispel, you can just start your mass dispel like 1.4 seconds or whatever before the cast finishes, and you'll instantly mass dispel 5 people. But there are plenty of people in the circle who can get rid of the root on their own, like warriors or DKs, or a lot of melee can do that. And those people should be doing that. And then the people who can't get rid of the root on their own are the ones who you should be mass dispelling, right? So what I do is I wait for it to go off, and then give it like maybe 1 second. That's when I start my cast, right? When it goes off. And then after the second is over, I let my mass dispel go off, and I hope that the people who can break their own have already broken it by then. and then my Mass Dispel hits the people who can't break their own, right? Also, it puts a dot on you, right? So the dot stays even after you're not rooted, right? So the Mass Dispel is only to get rid of the root, and the dot will stay. So now we're in Intermission 1, and depending on what you decide to do as a guild, who you decide to send down and who you decide to keep up, your job is going to be different in the 2 phases. My advice for this would be send down people who have good single target damage. So Shadow Priests, Rogues, I think Assassination Rogues are the ones that have good single target damage, things like that. And then keep the people up who have pretty good spread AoE, because there are going to be 4 ads that spawn. Or 2 target people who have good 2 target damage, like Destruction Warlocks. They can havoc the 2 abominations that spawn here, so they're a good class to keep up. What my guild decided to do was they sent down one of the Shadow Priests, and then they had me stay up, right? Which is not a horrible idea, and it means that, because Shadow Priest is actually pretty good for this phase if you play it correctly, but it's a bit of a different play style than you would normally be doing in the down phase. But yeah, that's my advice for splitting the 2 groups. Keep like ranged players or players who are not very mobile, because there's a lot of stuff downstairs that you have to dodge, and people who have good cleave. Keep those players up, and keep the single target damage dealers and more mobile classes and people like that downstairs, right? Okay, so I shook my camera really bad right there because I used my mind bender when I didn't want to. Okay, so in this phase, you've got these unstoppable abominations and these soul reavers. I can't talk much about the down phase because I haven't ever gone down there. I did on PTR, and from what I could tell down there, it's really just super easy. It's just single target and dodge the frontals, dodge the tornadoes, and dodge the swirlies. So it's mostly just like a mini game of how much damage can you do when you have to move a lot, right? How much single target can you do when you have to move a lot? And then on this upstairs phase, you'll notice that these Soul Reaver Banshee chicks have like 400,000 health, and these Unstoppable Abominations have like 1.3 million health. So your damage should be focusing on the Abominations upstairs, and you should be kicking the Soul Reavers every time they start casting something. They'll cast like Banshee's Cry. Yeah, you want to kick that every single time. And then the Abominations will cast this frontal called Demolish, and it puts those green circles on the ground and makes sure people aren't standing in that. I mean, this upstairs phase is pretty easy. All you got to really do is pay attention to the tanks. I'm pretty sure our tanks are, one of them is tanking one abomination and the other one is tanking the other, because I think they slap the tanks pretty hard. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole upstairs phase, is you just want to make sure that you don't kill those Banshees too quickly, because they'll get resurrected by Kel'Thuzad if you kill them too quickly in this first phase, and then they're not interruptible, and it's really a bad thing. You pretty much want to kill all 4 of those ads at the same time. And then, yeah, we've got another set of tank ads. We have a Devoted that got gripped in. That is generally a really bad idea, because here, let me pause real quick because things are going a little quick. Excuse me, sorry. The Plaguebound Devoteds, like I said, are like kamikaze guys, right? So if they get to you, they explode and do a ton of damage. And if you are a Death Knight and you're gripping them into the group, right, it should be pretty clear why that is a bad idea, right? Because if everybody's stacked on each other and you just pull a bomb into the group, basically, you're all going to take a ton of damage. Like, there's rarely a good reason to do it, unless maybe you have like a ranged standing far away from the boss and the Devoted is about to get to them, and your DK grips the Devoted in towards the boss to give the ranged player more room. That is totally fine, and I'm not trying to just flame our Death Knights here. It's just something that we noticed was a problem as we were doing this boss. A-Bomb's Limb, the Death Knight ability that pulls in a bunch of things, kept gripping in a bunch of ads. It's called Grabby Hands. It kept gripping in a bunch of ads. that was a problem. And single target grips were also a little bit of a problem, but not as bad as the grabby hands. Okay, and then we've got this. This is phase 2, where he starts casting this Howling Blizzard. This is a lot like the Wrathion intermission, where he puts the fire on the ground and you have to find the safe spot. What we defaulted to doing, which I kind of disagree with, is we would just take the boss into one of the 2 corners, because the corners are usually pretty safe. I kind of disagree with that, because there are spots in the middle, if you just find the safe spot, right? There are safe spots in the middle that allow you to, because there are some spikes coming out right here. Like, we take this guy way over here to the corner, but if you look where I am right here, this is a safe spot, right? So I can stand here and hit those 3 Glacial Spikes. I'm being fixated right now, so I need to make sure this guy doesn't hit me. You can hit these Glacial Spikes. They need to die at the same time, at least the way we were doing it. There are different strategies you can have for these Glacial Spikes, but most groups, you're going to want to kill all 3 at the same time and use a bunch of healing cooldowns, because there's not really a time later in the fight where, this is the only mechanic that ever really needs healing cooldowns. All the other stuff is mostly not crazy bursty or going to kill the whole raid or anything. So you want to kill all 3 of these at the same time, like I was saying. Once you get to the phase that has 4 spikes, you're going to want to run 1 spike out away from the raid, and then keep the other 3 stacked on each other. Then you're going to kill the 3 spikes that are stacked on each other, and then you're going to let the one that ran out on its by itself, you're going to let it kill itself, because they lose health over time, and it'll explode eventually. Okay, so we get more of these tank ads. We get 3 more spikes. We stack them all on top of each other, and then people need to watch their feet right here so they don't get blasted by those spikes, like this guy got blasted. And then, yeah, we're going to kill these 3 spikes at the same time. As a Shadow Priest, when these spikes are going off is like the perfect time for you to be pressing VE, Vampiric Embrace. Basically, that's the only time I was using it on this fight. There are fights where you want to assign when to use Vampiric Embrace, but on this fight, you basically just want to send it every time you get those spikes. And then what I'm doing right here, in this intermission phase, people are not super healthy, and I am a hybrid class that can that can off heal, right? So during this time when I've got nothing to hit, I'm casting Shadow Mends on people to help them stay alive, right? And you should tell your boomkins and your priests and anybody else who can, maybe even monks, right? Anybody who can off heal, you should tell them to be off healing in this downtime where there's no damage to be done, right? And then you got another intermission phase. It's the exact same as the first. Being upstairs is kind of boring because all you ever do is fight these 4 guys, and it's super simple. You need to be aware these Soul Reaver guys are a lot like the Devoted. They'll target. They don't fixate on somebody like the Devoted do, but if your tank doesn't have threat on them, they will focus on one of the other ranged or melee or DPS or whatever that are up here, and if they get to you, they slap you real hard. So make sure that you know, this Soul Reaver right here, I have aggro on it, and so I need to be aware that this guy is coming towards me and is gonna slap me. So I move to the right, so that I can avoid it. And then our tank picks up threat and we're good. So yeah, if you're tanking this boss and you're in this upstairs phase, which all tanks should be, that's just something to be aware of. You should be kiting these Banshee dudes as the tank and only tanking the abominations. But yeah, it's pretty simple. And then we get into the phase 3. And this is when we start getting 4 of the ice spikes. So the Soul Fracture comes out. We've got the 3 tank ads. We need to put those silence things on them. Pretty simple. We get them all silenced, and then we just focus them all down. That Dark Evocation that he just cast is what resurrects all the Devoted. I will mention, you'll get very few Devoted at the beginning of the fight, but then by the end of the fight you have a ton, because every time you kill one, its body stays there, and every time Kel'Thuzad casts Dark Evocation, the Devoted you already killed will come back to life, as well as all the new devoted, right? So by the end of the fight, like we've got 7 devoted alive right now, right? And by the end of the fight, you'll have like over 10 probably. Okay, so yeah, we have 4 spikes right here, and we didn't handle this one very well. We've got diamond, star, circle, and triangle right here. Triangle, whoever this is, should be way out of the raid, not close like this. And yeah, so we end up dropping sorry, excuse me. We end up dropping triangle like pretty close to these 3, which just means that we need to be aware and not hit. It's now marked with a circle. We need to not hit the one that's far from the rest of them, because if you let 4 go off at the same time, it's technically livable if you have like really high damage reduction things and like spirit link totems and like really good healing cooldowns. Let's see if I can find a better frame of that. Okay, let me go back just a little bit. But you only want 3 to go off at the same time if you can help it. So, and you can help it most of the time. So if 4 are going to go off at the same time, then you need to be popping personals, right? So as a Shadow Priest, I disperse when there's 4 going off at the same time, and I'm just fine, right? You don't need to use dispersion when 3 go off, as long as you have a decent amount of healing cooldowns. But Fade is a really good thing to be using at that moment for your translucent image conduit, right? Okay, and then sorry, and then we have this big soak circle, this meteor on Spooky Thunder. In phase 3, we decided it's not worth it to try and soak these. I think mostly because there are so many devoted on people, but also because if you have 10 devoted all running at people and everybody's rooted, right, then they're going to blow up and kill everybody. So what we do in phase 3 and in phase 4 is we sacrifice the person who has the meteor on them, unless they have an immunity, in which case they just run out and keep themselves alive, right? So this Spooky Thunder guy, this is a shaman, may or may not have a way to keep themselves alive, most likely not. So they're probably just going to run out and die. And then if they can, they'll onk, I'm sure. But yeah, so they just run out. We're not going to soak it because this is phase 3. And then there's a safe spot. Okay, so right here, you'll see all this ice and like this pentagon, basically. This is a safe spot right here. But we end up taking the boss over to the corner again, which means that a lot of ranged players and all of the melee players are out of range of these 2 tank ads, which need to die ASAP. So it's important that you try to identify these safe spots that are closer to the middle of the room, just so that you can have an easier time hitting these ads, right? So I kick this, like, there were very few people who could have kicked that tank ad right there, because everybody's over here. But I managed to stay close enough because I saw this safe spot, so I got that kick, right? So yeah, and even like this spot that I'm in right now is safer than the spot that the boss is, just because there's more room, right? So try not to do what we ended up doing, and don't always just go to the corners assuming they're safe. Try to actually find like the safe spots in the room. You've got enough time. It's not like you have to get there instantly. You have enough time to like find it and then move over to it, right? So I'm just going to stay here and I'm going to focus this tank ad down. This means that I'm not super close, so I'm not getting a ton of the like AoE group healing. So I need to be aware of that and keep myself alive. But these ice circle things are going to go away here pretty soon. So it's not super important that I'm stacked up on everybody, right? See, they just went away. Now everybody comes out of the corner and we're still just fine, right? And then, what's the next thing? I think we're going to get another meteor if this is right. Okay, so we get the soul fracture, the tank ads. I've said this 100 times, but you just silence them, right? I take my silence circle over to it, and now it's permanently interrupted. And then I drop the silence zone, and now it's still permanently interrupted. We get the Glacial Spikes on us. I was in void form right there, so it was kind of hard to tell what marker I have. I did get a thing that popped up that says I've got diamond. But the guy with triangle, you'll see, is down here. It's a boomkin, and the boomkin wild charged away, so that now they did it correctly. Now we have these 3 spikes on top of each other and the 1 spike out there, right? So we're going to stay close to each other for all the healing cooldowns. So I run in. We need to make sure we're CCing these devoted. And then we need to focus these glacial spikes down ASAP. And then actually 1 devoted exploded right there, which is not great. And then we can kill this last glacial spike before the people go down, but it's honestly not that big of a deal. It'll die on its own. So, okay, so then we have the last intermission phase. This is not such a big deal, right? It's exactly the same as all the other intermission phases. So we just need to make sure that we're dodging those frontals. We need to make sure that we're CCing these Soul Reavers, basically just interrupting their casts. And then after we've killed, this is when you lust. So after you kill the final, when you actually kill the remnant that's downstairs during Intermission 3, you come back up, and now this is the real boss HP, right? So when this hits 0, this 8 million that Kel'Thuzad has, when that hits 0, the boss fight's over. And this phase has a soften rage. There will be ice circles that spawn that start taking up parts of the room, and they'll never go away, right? So you need to kill this boss before you run out of room and everybody dies. So this is when you want to lust. And yeah, we're just gonna blast Kel'Thuzad down. Kalamazi gets the meteor on him, so he should run this out of the raid. We definitely do not want to soak this. So he's a good player, so he just runs out and dies. It's way better to let 1 guy die than to try and soak it when all this damage is coming out and everybody's going to be rooted and everything. We get another meteor. This one is on a frost mage, luckily, so he just goes out and ice blocks it and he can stay alive. As a shadow priest, you've got dispersion, which reduces damage taken by 75%, which is not enough for, so like Stumble has it on him. He's a shadow priest. He's going to go out and we'll see. Yeah, he just dies. And then he gets resurrected by Kel'Thuzad. Players that die will get resurrected by Kel'Thuzad. So it's important to not die in the earlier phases. And if somebody does die, you want to res them before the Dark Evocation. Anyway, so yeah, as a shadow priest, dispersion is not enough to keep you alive by itself. But if you have dispersion and like pain suppression or some other external, then that's enough to keep you alive, right? Even dispersion and fade is probably pretty close because that's an 80% reduction. Dispersion, fade, and desperate prayer, I didn't get a chance to test this, right? Because we killed this boss within like 6 pulls or something, so I never had an opportunity to test. But I'm pretty sure I could do the math on it, and maybe I will, and I'll post a comment down below. But if you disperse, fade with translucent image, and hit desperate prayer, you can probably solo the meteor and not die, right? Although you might die to the dot immediately after. Also, I'll mention there's a ticking dot during this phase that is stacking. So you need to finish this phase as soon as possible, which is why we lust and save all our final cooldowns and everything for this. And then, yeah, this is the end of the fight. So you get these ads that come out. Everything is just going crazy right now. And then, yeah, it's basically over. We sacrifice that last meteor again. This is when you want to pop literally everything. And then Kel'Thuzad dies. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. Let me know if I missed anything or if you feel like I should have mentioned other things differently or talked about stuff differently or anything like that. If you liked the video, feel free to like it. If you really liked it, feel free to subscribe. Maybe share it with your guild, share it with your friends. It would help me grow, which I would appreciate. Leave a comment. I do have a Discord server, so anybody who wants to get pinged when I go live on Twitch or anything like that, feel free to join my Discord server. I can also give you more one-on-one help there. So if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, feel free to join my Discord server. But that's going to be the end of the video. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.